Welcome back to Sissy Maya. Make sure to subscribe to our channel to never miss an update. Additionally, consider subscribing to my Patreon to get access to these features, and much more.
Monica Potter began telling Maxtine's story while she played with the other children. Maxtine was an adorable 8-year-old with shoulder-length blonde hair styled in a bob and held back with a navy blue ribbon. She wore a cute navy blue and white party dress with a poplin bodice, a polka-dot pleated skirt, and sunflower bows. It all began about 18 months ago when Max was 7. His father was away on business again, and I had gotten tickets to a matinee of Swan Lake by the local professional ballet company. I decided to take Max with me. I've always loved ballet and had hoped to share that passion with my daughter. Unfortunately, after having Max, I realized I couldn't have any more children. That must have been tough, Anna said. It must have been hard for you. At first, it was, Monica responded. But I had Max, and we became very close. My husband was away so often, so Max and I spent a lot of time together. That's wonderful, Anna said. He really does make a pretty girl. You must be so proud. I am, Monica smiled. No mother could ask for a better son. He loves his girl time, and I feel like I have the daughter I always wanted. The women paused, watching Maxtine as she dressed up a Bratz doll with another little girl, Susan. The two giggled quietly, and the women smiled before returning to Monica's story. The performance was magnificent, Monica continued. Max loved it. He couldn't take his eyes off the dancers. When the show ended, he turned to me and said, "I want to do that." I was a bit surprised, but also thrilled. He'd never shown much interest in any particular activities. He was always so quiet and not very into anything physical. His father often commented on his lack of activity, but with all his traveling, he never did anything about it. That's wonderful, Anna said. You must have been so proud. Yes, I was, Monica agreed. So, that week, I did some research online and found a dance studio about an hour away. It was run by Mrs. Taylor. I called her and asked if I could enroll Maximum. She seemed a bit surprised, as dance wasn't something boys typically did in this area, and he would be the only boy in the class. I reassured her that he was very eager and well-behaved. She agreed to take him on a trial basis. She also explained that the required uniform was a powder blue leotard, which she sold, along with appropriate shoes. I must admit, I thought she seemed a little strict at the time, but given that there were no other options, I agreed. She said she would send more information about the dress code and practice schedule. After the phone call, Monica found Max and told him about the dance class. "You'll be the only boy, and you'll have to wear a leotard," she said. She expected him to hesitate, but instead, he seemed excited. "Oh, thank you, Mummy. When do I start? When do I get my leotard and shoes? What dances will I learn?" he asked eagerly. Monica was touched by his enthusiasm. "We'll start in 3 days at the next practice, but first, we need to get your leotard and shoes." The next day, she met Mrs. Taylor to pick up the uniform, which included powder blue ribbons and hair accessories. "I know you don't need them," Mrs. Taylor said, "but I insist that all the girls wear their hair in a certain way. I call it my ribbon discipline." I thanked her and told her we'd be there next Tuesday at 5 p.m. On the way home, Max couldn't wait to try on the uniform. "Can I try it on when we get home?" he asked excitedly. Max was so excited, and I couldn't have been happier for him. I kept the ribbons, hair slides, and scrunchie hidden, and when we got home, I printed out the email Mrs. Taylor had sent while Max changed. The email included standard information like arriving early for practice. It also clearly stated that the girls, yes, girls, would have to participate in at least one of the 2 annual recitals, something I'd learn more about later. She also had strict guidelines about hair, insisting it be secured so it doesn't interfere with concentration. Max's hair wasn't as long as it is now, but it was longer than most boys, swept to one side. His father often commented on it, but I figured if he wanted to cut it, he could take Max to the barber, which he never did. It became clear I would have to secure his hair with slides or possibly style it in a ponytail or pigtails unless I cut it short like a typical boy's style. I didn't want to cut it. I thought it looked great longer, and it suited him. At that point, Max came out, changed into his leotard and shoes. He looked absolutely adorable. "How do I look, Mummy?" he asked. "Wonderful, darling, just wonderful," I replied. Then, he tried a little twirl. When he turned to face me, there was the biggest grin on his face. My heart skipped a beat, he was so happy. That was when I told him about Mrs. Taylor instructions, and that he'd need to get his hair cut. "But why, Mummy?" "I don't want to cut it," he said. I explained that if he didn't want it cut, I'd have to put it in a ponytail, pigtails, or a bun and use hair slides to keep it in place, as per Mrs. Taylor rules. He went quiet for a moment, deep in thought. "Okay, Mummy," he finally said. "What, sweetie?" I asked, unsure if he fully understood. "Okay, Mummy, put it in a ponytail or pigtails with slides and stuff." I was a little surprised but had to explain that it meant securing his hair with elastic and ribbon, just like a girl's. He thought about it again, and my heart started to race. I wanted him to say, "That's okay," but instead, he stayed quiet, taking forever to answer. "Well, okay, just to see what it looks like," he said finally. My heart fluttered. "Wait here, darling." I rushed to my room to get the ribbons, hairbrush, and slides. When I came back, Max was sitting quietly, waiting. "Please sit on the floor, darling," I said. Max sat on the floor, and I began brushing his hair. I couldn't help but feel a twinge of excitement. He really did have beautiful hair. I brushed it until it shone, then pulled it back into a ponytail and secured it with elastic. I used the hair slides to tame the stray hairs and then tied a blue ribbon around the ponytail. I brushed out the ponytail and arranged his bangs, stepping back to admire my work. Max looked up at me, and I could feel tears welling in my eyes. "What's wrong, Mummy? Why are you crying?" he asked. I shook my head. "Nothing, darling. Mummy's just being silly. You look very nice." I wanted to scream that he looked more than nice, he looked adorable. He was sitting in front of me, the prettiest little girl, and all I could think was how beautiful she looked. "Can you stand up for Mummy?" I asked. Max stood up, and he looked so cute in his leotard, with his hair tied back and the ribbon in place. "Do you want to see what you look like?" I asked. "Oh yes, please," he replied enthusiastically. "Let's go and have a look," I said, leading him to the full-length mirror in my bedroom. When he saw himself, he just stared at his reflection. He turned his head back and forth, looked at himself from every angle. I had to cover my mouth to stop from laughing, he looked so adorable. "Well," he asked, eagerly. "I like it, Mummy," Max said. "Is the hair okay? We can still get it cut if you want," I asked. "No, I like it like this," he replied. "Do you want to try it another way, just in case?" I suggested. "Well, if you think I should," he hesitated. "We should find out what works best for you," I said quickly. "Come here, darling, let's put it in a bun." I was so happy. It felt like having my own daughter, and I couldn't help but wonder how far I could take this. Would he be open to more than just styling his hair? Could I put him in a dress? The thought of having my own daughter made my heart race. I styled his hair into a small bun, wrapped a scrunchie around it, and then added pigtails with ribbons, so cute. He looked like a little girl. All the while, he patiently waited, delighting in looking at himself in the mirror. Later, I asked him to change, and when he came back, he wore shorts and a tee, but his hair was still in pigtails. He stayed that way for the rest of the afternoon, playing and watching TV. Around dinner time, he lay on the floor facing the TV, twirling one of his pigtails with his hand. From behind, he looked just like a little girl watching her favorite show. When it was time for bed, he changed into his pajamas, and as I reluctantly removed the ribbons from his hair, I asked, "Did you have fun today?" "Yes, Mummy," he said. "Did you like your ballet outfit?" "Yes, Mummy, very much." Which way did you like your hair best, ponytail, pigtails, or bun? I asked. I liked them all, he replied without hesitation. Would you like me to do your hair again tomorrow? I asked casually. That would be good, he said. Maybe you'd like me to show you how to do it yourself. Then you can wear it however you like, whenever you want. I could even get you more accessories so you can try different styles, would you like that? He hesitated for a moment, and I thought I might have pushed too far. Then he nodded and added softly, Yes, Mummy, that would be nice. Okay, sweetheart. We can get something tomorrow. The next day, Max was up early, watching TV until I got up. We have to go shopping today, maximum time to get changed, I said. He dutifully went to his room where I had left a pair of denim shorts and a white Mickey Mouse tee. It was a deliberately unisex outfit, one that could be worn by either a boy or a girl. After he changed, I brushed his hair again. This time, instead of brushing it to the side, I brushed it forward and trimmed it into bangs. What are you doing, Mummy? He asked. It's just a bit long, baby, so I thought I'd trim the front to keep it out of your eyes, I explained. I brushed it behind his ears and stepped back. He looked just like a little girl. Time to go, baby. We drove to the large mall. We need to get some things for your hair, remember? I said. Okay, he said, holding my hand as we went to the local accessory store. You look around, and I'll grab a few things, I told him. While he browsed, I quickly grabbed some hair slides, ribbons, headbands, scrunches, and elastics. I also picked up some hair bows and a little girl's makeup set, things like cherry and strawberry lip balms. I could hardly wait to get home. As we were leaving, the girl behind the counter asked, Would your daughter like a candy? If Max heard, he didn't say anything. Yes, she would, I replied, my heart fluttering. The girl thought Max was my daughter. It was thrilling. I know, it gives you such a thrill when someone thinks they're a girl, Anna said with a smile. Please continue. We had lunch and were about to head home when I saw it, a sign that said, Summer Special, Girls Nightwear, age 4 to 10. It felt like fate. Come with me, baby. We need to get you some things, I said. Max followed me as I picked out some baby doll and Disney princess nightgowns. He said nothing but smiled and looked away when I glanced at him. When we got to the car, he asked, Are those clothes for me, Mummy? Yes, dear, they are. Do you like them? I asked. Are they girls' clothes, Mummy? He asked. Yes, they are. I thought they might be fun for a change. Okay, he said, and that was all. When we got home, I styled his hair into a ponytail with a yellow ribbon. Max thanked me and spent the rest of the day with the ribbon in his hair. That night, I laid out an Ariel nightgown and matched it with a light blue headband for his hair. He snuggled into me on the couch as we watched The Little Mermaid together. Halfway through the movie, my little girl looked up at me and said, Doesn't Ariel have such beautiful hair? I wish mine was long like hers, Max said. My heart nearly broke. I looked down at him and said, We can grow it longer if you want, and we could even get you a wig like Ariel's for dress-up. Could we, Mummy? Yes, sweetheart, we can. He smiled and then fell asleep. The following weekend, I got him an Ariel costume, a Princess Jasmine costume, and a Belle costume, along with matching dolls. I also bought a child's auburn, black, and red wig to go with each outfit. It was a bit of an indulgence, but it was worth it. We spent the entire weekend playing Disney princesses. I was in heaven, and so was Max. Would you like to see the photos? He looks absolutely adorable. Oh yes, please, said Rosemary. Monica reached into her bag and pulled out a small photo album labeled My Little Darling. She flipped through the pages, showing Rosemary the pictures of Max dressed as Ariel, Jasmine, and Belle. You're right, he looks adorable. He makes a beautiful princess, said Rosemary. He certainly did last Halloween, but that's another story, Monica added with a smile. Anyway, back to Max's first ballet lesson, Monica continued, as she packed away the photo album. I must admit, I was more concerned about how Mrs. Taylor would react when I showed up with my son looking like a little girl than I was about Max's performance. But I decided that if he was going to look like a girl, he might as well go all the way, so I put him in pigtails with ribbons and hair slides. Surprisingly, Max wasn't nervous at all, he was just excited. When we arrived, 3 girls were already there, including a very pretty little girl with long brown hair named Grace. I walked in and introduced myself to Mrs. Taylor. Max is here for his first lesson, I said, deliberately avoiding mentioning his gender, just in case anyone noticed the pigtails. Where's Max? Mrs. Taylor asked. Over there on the bench. The one with the blonde hair in pigtails. Max didn't want to get his hair cut, and since you have such strict rules about hair, well, I said, nervously trying to explain. Mrs. Taylor looked at me and said, what you do with your child is your business, as long as Max listens and behaves for me. That's all that matters. I sighed with relief, and within 5 minutes, Max was on the floor being introduced to the other girls by Mrs. Taylor. The practice began, and I was surprised at how quickly Max picked up the movements. I also noticed that during breaks, Grace kept talking to Maximum. I was a little concerned but didn't want to make a scene, so I just watched. Towards the end of the session, a woman came over and introduced herself as Susan, Grace's mother. You have a very pretty daughter, she said, and my heart skipped a beat. Thank you, I said, so does your daughter. They seem to be getting along well. Grace can be a bit of a chatterbox. I hope she's not annoying your daughter, Susan said, using the D word again. My heart was racing now. That's okay. Max is very quiet, so they should make a good pair, I replied. She laughed, and we started chatting. She asked a lot of questions about me, Max, and my marriage, and I found myself talking about him as a girl more easily than I had expected. Maybe a little too easily. We should get the girls together sometime, Susan said. I agree, let's arrange a playdate, I heard myself say, without even thinking. That sounds great. We're going for pizza now, if you'd like to join us. So, we joined Grace and her mother for pizza, and that day, and almost every day after practice that summer, the 2 girls would play and talk. They'd bring their Bratz dolls or coloring books to entertain themselves. Susan and I would chat. Where's Maxtine going to school? Susan asked, always calling him Maxtine, which I secretly loved. We're enrolled in the local elementary school, I replied. It's such a shame Maxtine couldn't attend St. Mary's with Grace. I know she'd love it. I could arrange a visit if you'd like. I hesitated. A girls' school. The thought of Max in a school uniform with his hair in ribbons. Oh, if only. Thanks, Susan, but I think we'll stay with the elementary school, I said. I understand. But if you change your mind, just let me know. Over the summer, Max's father called once a week. I told him about the ballet classes, and he wasn't thrilled, but I told him not to be silly, lots of boys did ballet. If only he knew how cute our little ballet dancer looked, he would have freaked out. I told Max not to talk about our girl time or dressing up for ballet, and he understood. My husband was none the wiser. At the 3rd practice, Mrs. Taylor introduced the end-of-term recital. We're going to do a series of dances for parents and friends to showcase what the girls have learned. Please read the handout that describes the dances and costumes. The first costume will need some modifications. I will leave makeup up to you, but please keep it minimal, and hair must be in a bun for all 3 dances. I also recommend white hair accessories as they will complement all 3 costumes. Most girls will participate in all group dances, and I need 2 mothers to volunteer to help change the girls between the group dances. 2 girls will be doing solos. I'll speak directly to those mothers while the others change. The soloists will not participate in the next group dance. Celia read the handout. The first dance will be Spring Has Sprung. The girls will need a flower costume, and I recommend a Capezio satin doll tutu dress. It's a sweet tutu dress trimmed with pink satin piping and a large pink bow. Sparkle tulle adds just the right amount of shine for little girls. I'll need you to modify it so each girl looks like a flower. I have patterns available to help with this. The next dance is a shortened version of Swan Lake that I've modified for young girls. It will require a Juliet tutu skirt, which is a great basic for performances. It has 2 full layers of netting that fall just below the knee and is paired with a satin basic bodysuit. The final piece is called Sky Dance and will require a fairy gems cap sleeve dress, which is a soft crushed velvet polyspandex leotard with an attached mesh skirt featuring holographic foil sparkles. Susan approached me. I know the costumes look expensive, but they're actually quite reasonable. I can also help with the flower alterations. Thank you, I said, my mind racing. My little boy's first recital, dressed as a girl. I was so excited. I looked over at Max, who was busy chasing the other girls around the dance floor. He looked so happy and cute with his little ponytail bouncing behind him. A moment of panic hit me, mothers to help change the girls. I quickly approached Mrs. Taylor and offered my assistance. She accepted without comment, and I suspected she knew why I was so eager. On the drive home, I asked Max what he thought of the recital. He was so excited. When can I get the dresses, Mummy? And we get to wear makeup? Grace says. There was not a doubt in his mind, he could hardly wait. That night, I dressed him in a baby doll nightie and braided his hair. He even braided mine, he was getting so good at it. As we sat at my vanity brushing his hair before bed, I asked him, "You enjoy this, don't you, sweetheart? Dressing up and being Mummy's little girl?" "Yes, Mummy, I do. I wish I had been born a girl, just like you," he said. I stopped brushing his hair and gave him a big hug. "You are a girl, baby. You're Mummy's girl, and tomorrow, we can go shopping and get you some skirts, tops, and dresses. We can turn the spare room into your girl room, and you can be a girl with Mummy anytime you want." "Oh, Mummy," he said, beginning to cry. We sat there, cuddling. "Oh, Mummy, I'm so happy to be your little girl." "So am I, sweetheart. So am I." After that, I bought Max a wardrobe full of girls' clothes, and he began dressing as a girl most of the time. I would have liked to send him to St. Mary's, but I couldn't, too many questions, so I chose to homeschool him. Towards the end of the summer, my husband sent me an email saying he wasn't coming back, he had found someone else and moved in with her. I felt relieved. The recital was a huge success. It was so much fun making the costumes, doing his hair and makeup. I even got him blonde hair extensions for the bun. He looked adorable in his dresses and had such a great time. He's still doing ballet and now says he wants to be a prima donna ballerina. He's also taken up jazz and tap. He's become very close to Grace, and they've had sleepovers with other girls from ballet. After the recital, there was a party for the mothers and girls. As we were leaving, Susan pulled me aside and said how much she had enjoyed meeting me and my daughter. I was floored. I asked her how she knew, and if anyone else knew. She said she wouldn't have guessed, except that Mrs. Taylor had told her. "I was so angry with that woman," Susan said. "Max is a wonderful little girl, and you should be proud to have such a pretty and well-behaved daughter." I felt so relieved to share this with someone, and Susan and I became very close. "I now have the daughter I've always wanted," Monica continued, "and when I heard about your club, I knew it was made for Max and me." "That's a wonderful story," said Anna. "It reinforces what I've always believed. In every little boy, there's a beautiful girl just waiting to show herself, and it's up to us mothers to help her come out." We all turned and looked at Max, who was brushing the hair of his Bratz doll. He looked up and smiled at his mother. He really was a very pretty girl.